Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fate Magazine Radio right here on the UNX Network, KUNXDB, Kansas City, Missouri, Van Buren, Arkansas. You know, for decades, for over 75 years, Fate Magazine has brought true reports of the strange and the unknown to its readers worldwide, and it's still going to this very day. And keeping in that tradition, Fate Magazine Radio with host Kat Hobson is absolutely your source for everything Fate Magazine and all of the wonderful personalities that flow in and around it and you. And now it's my honor to bring Kat Hobson to the stage for all of you for Fate Magazine Radio. Here's Kat Hobson, everybody.
Hello there. I don't really know what to say after that intro. Thank you. I am so excited to be here tonight. I have some people in the paranormal and anomalous fields who really click all the boxes for me. I am an avid reader. I am somebody who is really interested in, well, just about anything that seems a little off the beaten path. I'm very fortunate that I get to talk to people like tonight's guest. Mike Ricksecker he's a multiple title and topic author. He wrote a book that really affected a lot of things that I look at, and I don't think that he even knows about that, but his travels through time, inside the fourth dimension, time travel, and stacked time theory. I've really been affected by this book. And yes, I did read that because I didn't want to get that wrong. It really struck a nerve with me. Mike is somebody who really goes probably beyond any level of anyone else that I know. He is, well, his docuseries, The Shadow Dimensions, is pretty amazing. He's been on Travels, The Alaska Triangle, Histories, Ancient Aliens, and The Unexplained. His Connecting the Universe is a whole program of content. You can get it in multiple formats. He has interactive classes. He live streams. His podcast is available. And mainly, he seems to be just a really wonderful person the times I've gotten to talk to him. So, Mike Ricksecker, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me tonight, Kat. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Well, I really do enjoy your work. And everything about it, I think that you aren't afraid to take on things that everybody has experiences. Everybody I know has had time slips, just little things that aren't quite right, or you'll come across somebody and it's like, oh, I know you. Well, our paths have never crossed, but I know you, and I think that the way you explain these things is strongly indicative of the interest you have in that. And it's almost a compelling need to get that information out. And
yeah. It's Travels Through Time was a passion project. It's I've always had an interest in time and time travel. I start the book off in the introduction with the story that meant a lot to me, where I attempted to time travel as a 14-year-old. Just because I was, heartbroken over the previous year, having moved from the area that I had grown up in for 10 years as a kid, and I was trying to go back in time just to see my friends one last time, and I was using the method from Somewhere in Time, where basically, I get that it's a fictional story, but Richard Matheson's writing on that, he did a lot of research into the nature of time, and so his methodology in there is backed by science and philosophy of the time. So I gave it a shot, you know. But it's last year when I was in Egypt, I was originally going to write a book called Connecting the Universe with a whole different variety of topics. But coming out of Egypt last year, it just became clear to me that no, Connecting the Universe was an entire series. And where did I want to start that? And it was with this underlying passion that I've had for decades of let's start with the nature of time and the inner workings of the universe. Like give us a base to start this series with.
It's effective.
Thank you.
You know, that really is, it's really important. I think people, when there is a time jump or there is just a slip, as you described, or somewhere in time was astounding to me when I saw it.
Yeah.
And then you referenced it in your book. And I can understand the passion that would make you so want to go back to something that was so happy. You know, we all have, like you with your childhood friends, and other people just with a time when before somebody had passed, or a time before a negative occurrence happened that was life altering. I mean, to be able to go back with foreknowledge, right, would
Right.
be not just going back because of your passion for your friends or your passion for that love, or you know, there's so much involved when you start discussing things that you could maybe alter, and or not alter, just live it. You know, like you just wanted to live there with your friends.
Yeah, I just wanted to
And
visit again. You know, have
yeah,
one last football game with them or something. You know, just to be able to
yeah,
hang out again. Um, yeah, when you talk about loved ones, um, so many. I mean, it's part of the life cycle. You know, we lose people along the way, people that are close to us, and for years and years and years, I had lived outside of my home state of Ohio after I graduated high school, and um, I was in the Air Force for a while, and I ended up living in Maryland for a long time, and Alaska, Maryland, Oklahoma. I mean, I was around and around the country, but not around at home. And I distinctly remember several times my grandfather, who I'd been pretty close to. I was close to both my grandparents, and several times he would say, I sure wish you lived closer. And
yeah,
when we did see each other, we had some wonderful conversations, and you know, there just wasn't enough. You know,
yeah,
um, so it would be nice to have that opportunity to go back and just at least visit.
yeah. Just one more conversation,
Right,
or
exactly,
or a few more. You know, if you got really good at it, a few more.
exactly.
Yeah. You know, it's really something that, like I said, I don't know if you saw my post when I said I don't think that you know that that really has affected me
Mhm.
when I read that, because I do experience time slips,
Okay,
and it's very, usually it's a really cool thing, you know, because the the warm fuzzies, as we used to say back in the day, you know, it's
right.
really a good thing. And it's disconcerting sometimes,
Mhm.
but like when you have an animal show up that you've been missing so much,
Right.
you know, and there they are, and it's just like, oh, thank you so much. So i've
Yeah, just
i've
that
lost
moment. Then.
Yeah, I've lost a couple of dogs in the last year,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
both of them were pretty harsh,
Mhm.
harsh losses. They all are. But one of them was very unexpected, and the other one was just a wonderful old girl who had just worn out, so
Mm,
but when I see her, she's not worn out. So it's just like,
right.
"Oh, my goodness, we're just wide open here."
Right.
But it's
That's
just an
wonderful.
awesome thing, I think. So I
Oh,
haven't
absolutely.
oh, I did kind of have one when I was in Gettysburg, and
Oh, yeah.
I
What'd you see?
it was because I didn't it was my first time, and I was driving in from Reagan National, and I didn't realize I was in Gettysburg or in the battlefield yet.
Hmm.
And I was driving through, and I looked down, there's a house that's down. I'm pointing like everybody can see over here, but there's a house that sits down in a hollow, kind of, and there were people wandering around in the tree line. And I was like, oh, they must be reenacting something. I got here just in
Mhm.
time. And then I realized that, there wasn't any smoke from the fire, and everybody was just kind of very period dressed, looked very battle weary.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I looked again and they were gone. And I was like, double O, and that was my welcome to Gettysburg moment.
Nice.
And that was not something that's unusual there. That energy
Yeah.
there is so strong.
That is reported a lot there at Gettysburg. These moments that looks like they're reenacting a battle or men marching, or like you had there, they're kind of camped out, and people will go to the visitor center and make some remark of, "Oh, yeah, you had some fantastic reenactors out there," and they said, "Well, we don't have any reenactors doing anything today."
Yeah.
But those are, we've attributed those to some sort of ghost or apparition or residual haunt or what have you. But I mean, really, they're a type of time slip. We're getting a glimpse of another moment in time, and there are times where they see us and actually respond
Yes.
to us. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I've had that happen in a haunted location before.
Hmm.
And, I was going through it, and the person reacted to me. I
Right.
reacted to the person too. But, because it's very rare that I get a full body, and
Hmm.
certainly not what appears to be a cognizant full body.
Right.
And so when, the old "I'm looking at you, looking at me" thing, well, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Hmm.
And it was cool, but it was so surprising. I'm not used to them recognizing me or seeing me.
Right. Right. And that's when
So,
you know
and
you
it
have a real time slip, is when they react to you, the way that you're reacting to them. And so you are actually communicating with somebody at another point in time. So those are
and it
amazing.
doesn't last it didn't last long.
You know,
It seems
no,
like
yeah, it'll dissipate away pretty quickly, because I mean, really, what's happening is, you're talking about two different moments. They have their own frequency, and those frequencies are they're not static. They're moving around. They're dynamic and fluctuating. And so um, it's when they resonate at the same frequency for a moment that we get a glimpse of it. But because, again, it's dynamic and not static, they'll suddenly move away from each other. So the trick to really being able to uh, experience that for a longer period of time would be trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep the two frequencies the same for a longer drawn out period of time? So that would
well,
be the
I I have a feeling if anybody's going to find it, it'll be you.
trick.
Or somebody that's learning from you. You know, I know that I don't, as a rule, fangirl at all, and if I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I really do feel strongly that the work that you're doing is so important, and it's going to be so beneficial down the line. It's the documentation that you provide through your writing,
Mhm.
and the I love that you are opening minds that, it's just like, "Er, er," you know, let's get this thought out here.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be a leader.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And really, it's just, a couple different things. Get people thinking. Let's put these ideas out there, and there'll be people that are smarter than me that come up with the technology to make it all happen. But yeah, to get people thinking about it, talking about the different phenomena, the different possibilities that are out there, how that might work. And then there's so many of us that have had a variety of different experiences out there, and just helping people realize that you're not alone in this. So many of us have had these different types of experiences, and maybe this is one explanation for what you've had. So yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of these people that listen to the show are fascinated in doing this kind of research on their own.
Mhm.
And, it's always nice when you can present someone, you're a host, you're familiar with being able to bring someone that has the knowledge and the interest that kicks them into further knowledge to be able to bring these things to fruition at some point, or lead the way so other people can do their side of it too. And something that I think is really cool also is you have such a diverse group of interests. How did you? Okay, I grew up on the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
I mean, not on the Bermuda, but
Just out
that's
there on
the
the water.
one. That's the one that's close by. And all of my life, people were sharing experiences that they have had there.
Yeah.
Different, I was totally into all of that. So, how did you get interested in the Alaska Triangle?
Well, part of it was I was stationed up there for 3 years when I was in the Air Force.
Mhm.
So there were things that I saw, witnessed, experienced while I was up there. People did talk about the concept of the Alaska Triangle while I was there. As far as the television show and in the book that I ended up writing, um, in some ways it was just the universe kind of setting me down that path. Um, I'd done a lot of work. I've already been on a couple television shows. I'd done a lot of work on. I'd written some books and did a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, talking about all of this, different strange phenomena. And one day, the producers of that television show reached out to me and said, "Hey, we saw this video that you did on portals and the supernatural, and wanted to talk to you about that type of activity." And I found that kind of interesting because it was not a very widely viewed video. I thought there was good material in it, but YouTube is a fickle beast, and
True that.
it didn't farm that one out there to everybody. So it maybe only had a couple hundred views. That was it. So, but they had found it, and they reached out to me about it. So we got on a call, and we're just kind of discussing, how the energy of the earth works. We talked about ley lines. We talked about supernatural activity that happens in these different hotspot areas. And then they asked me, "Well, what do you know about that type of activity in Alaska?" And I said, "Well, I spent 3 years in Alaska, and there's what they call the Alaska Triangle." And they said, "You know what? That's the name of our show." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." So it was just, it was an instant match.
Yes.
So, they flew me up there. We talked about a lot of different stories and topics and phenomena and all that. And
Yes.
probably
I
only
love the show.
thank
So.
you. Thank you. Yeah, it's probably only about maybe not even 5% of that made it onto the show, because we were up there talking for hours and hours on the side of Flat Top Mountain. So we did like the whole morning up there, came down, had lunch, went right back up, filmed a whole bunch more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that experience inspired me to write the book, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. So yeah, it covers a lot that's on the show, but covers a lot of other material too, as well as my own personal experiences up there.
What was the most unusual thing that you experienced there?
That would be the shadow entities in the basement of the Alaska Command Building. And I was a little disheartened. I was on a certain television show when it did air last year, I think. And they told that story and they made it like it was just me. And I was tucked away in like this little, almost like closet room. And it's like, no. This was throughout the whole facility down there. I mean, most prominently in, the back office area in the cubicles. I wasn't tucked away in a closet. It was cubicle world. But basically, yeah, the basement of the Alaska Command Building. I was working for, the department was called at that time Worldwide Military Command and Control Systems, WMICS for short, which later became GCCS, Global Command and Control Systems. And we were housed in the same area as the base communications center. So yeah, we had our office area, but then we had like all these computers and servers and all this stuff back there. So, but throughout the area, we would see these shadows moving about. You'd be walking down the hall with a buddy, going from maybe the server room into the back office area, and all of a sudden you'd see something dart past, or you'd be sitting at your desk and all of a sudden, there it goes walking by, and you're like, whoa, what's that? And everybody saw these. Most everybody, at least I would say at least half that I communicated with, half the personnel down there that I communicated with were talking about it. And I'm going to guess there are others that saw it and never said anything.
Yes.
So we saw it mostly around the back office area, but sometimes we saw it in what we call the rack room, because that's where we had the big racks with the patch panels and crypto devices and multiplexers and all that stuff. And then there was another room all the way in the back that had like old printers and stuff. We'd see shadows dart into there. And when I'd been there about a week, my supervisor wasn't there when I first got put into that office. I had to wait a year for my security clearance to come in, and then when I got it, I ended up over there for the next 2 years. And my supervisor wasn't there when I first got there. He was on he was either on vacation or some sort of temporary assignment or something. He came back after I'd been there a week, and I'd already seen some things. And so I'm sitting down in his office doing like a little get to know you thing. And all of a sudden I see something walk by the door, a shadow. And I had turned and looked at it, and he noticed that I had looked at it. And all he said was, yeah, sometimes that happens here. Like, okay. And that was it. And we just went on with the
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, nothing abnormal here. So yeah, amongst this personnel, and this was never anything that we were ever going to take up the chain of command, because once you start talking about seeing things down there, you're going to find yourself over at mental health, and they're going to pull your security clearance and all that. So we just kind of chatted about it amongst ourselves, and there was this prevailing story that the reason why we were seeing these down there was because the building had once been a hospital, and where we were set up at was the old morgue, and the rack room was where the coolers had been. So it was a story that made sense to the phenomena that was going on down there. Okay, so decades later, I'm doing the research for Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, and I want to get the history of the building into the story, and I want all the accurate information for it. Well, come to find out that the building was never a hospital. It was built for exactly what it was being used for, which was
Really?
command. So then the question is, okay, what are these things that we're seeing down there if they're not, the souls and spirits of the deceased? So I believe, given the power of the Alaska Triangle, the energy from there, that we were experiencing time slips, that we were seeing just kind of shadowy images of personnel from the past, personnel from the future. We may have even been seeing ourselves.
Yes. You know, that's one part of time slips that people seem to step away from, is that, and I did find this so interesting that you included that and just brought it up,
Mhm.
is that sometimes it is either our future or past selves. And there's correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I remember a legend relevant to, if you were to see yourself in a different period, that it would have an adverse effect. I think maybe you could get some information from yourself and, you know, make better
Yeah.
decisions or something.
There's that old legend. If you see yourself, a doppelganger of yourself, and it's like a harbinger of death and all of that. And those are, to me, those are kind of fanciful legends for
I think
the
so.
people fear what they don't understand. So, and especially hundreds of years ago, if it wasn't of God, then it must be of the devil. So therefore, it must be something evil, nasty, and nefarious. So seeing these images of ourselves became things like evil twins, some sort of evil spirit that was trying to mimic us, harbingers of death, all of those different things. And I just really think that's people not understanding what it was that they were witnessing. So we have to attribute it to something
I
negative.
agree.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a wonderful story that I included in the book about the famous poet Goethe, and the man lived a nice long life. Um, and he recounted this in one of his books, Dichtung and Wahrheit. And I love telling this story because it's a great example of a doppelganger time slip story, where he's walking down the road one day toward Drussenheim, and he's kind of lost in his thoughts. He's having an affair with a young woman in the town, and he's just kind of lost in his thoughts thinking about it. And all of a sudden, he sees on the other side of the road this man in this gold trimmed gray suit walking in the other direction. And so he notices that, he turns to get a better look at the guy, and poof, it just disappears.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Whoa, what happened there? Where'd that guy go?" There's nothing he can do about it because the guy completely disappeared. So it's
Right.
just
I mean, that's done. Yeah.
right, it's done. Yeah. So kind of notes it and continues on his way. Well, years later, he's walking down that same road again in the opposite direction away from Trossenheim. And he's coming up to that spot where that incident happened. And he recalls the incident. He's like, "Oh, this is around that area where that guy disappeared." And all of a sudden he's looking at him like, "Oh my God, I was the guy because I'm wearing the gold trimmed gray suit right now." So it just, blew his mind that he had actually seen himself at two different points in time. And, kind of have to ask ourselves, okay, how did that happen? What's the catalyst for that? And I think we have to go back to the beginning of the story when he was lost in his thoughts. It's a type of meditative state.
Hmm.
We do it all the time when we kind of zone out. We're driving down the road, we zone out, we miss our turn, we miss our exit. Oh, darn, gotta turn around, go back. We do it when, I don't know, when we're mowing the lawn, washing the dishes, we kind of zone out a bit. It's a
Yeah.
type of meditative state. It's not a full meditative state because if we're driving down the road, go into a full meditative state, we'd get into an accident.
Well, then you're going to have other issues. Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be other problems. But it is slightly a meditative state. And I think what happened was he got into that meditative state, tuned into his own energy, his own frequency, uh, at another point in time when he was walking down that road, got a glimpse of it. And then when he turned to get a better look at it, it broke him out of that meditative state and the image vanished.
Yes. You know, I think all of us, I think that with the driving or being distracted and winding up where you anticipate or you don't remember even getting there. If it's someplace that's, you're driving and it's just kind of a rote memory,
Mhm.
you kind of go autopilot. I think all of us have had that happen, as much
Oh,
as we hate to admit that. But I think that's almost more like a quasi hypnotic
yeah.
state as opposed to a meditative, because the road especially, I was driving to a location in West Virginia one night. I was on my way to St. Albans, and it was dark,
Hmm.
and it was me and two 18-wheelers on the whole road,
Oh, geez.
but I was really having to fight to stay focused because, you know, I just felt like I had to. And then I was right because one of the 18-wheelers hit a deer.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, he was in front of me. And I was just like, oh no. So I
Yeah.
was able to avoid being part of that. But I mean, it was also interesting that the sleepiness, the whatever, the tired of driving, I'm almost to my destination. I'm having to really focus in.
Hmm.
And I was focused in on directions. And then, poof, there's this deer. It was, I was focused immediately before that happened. There was nothing distracting me before that happened. And I think, too, that's sometimes energy working for you when
Yeah. I
you
mean,
hold back.
you're entering into different brainwave states, and yes, your energy is changing in those moments. Your personal resonance is changing at those times. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that can happen there. We can enter into different states of consciousness. There are different things that we can see, experience, knowledge we can tap into. Yeah, there's a lot that can happen in those moments.
And it's weird because, like with your, you know, experience with, or the man's experience with seeing himself and then seeing himself again, you know, it's not even an altered state, really, or not a
No, at
physically
that
altered
point,
state.
he's just tuning into himself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just wild. It blows my mind all the time.
yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I do the work that I do and pay attention to the things that I do, because it's mesmerizing. It's fascinating.
Hmm.
When you start researching this and writing for so long, and you're so really good at what you do. And
Thank you.
it's just like, wow, you know, it's astounding the things that you come across. I mean, you were just in Egypt. Was it last year?
Um,
Earlier this year.
just,
Earlier this
just over
year.
a month ago. I mean, yes, last year, but also this year because we do a yearly tour. But yeah, I was
Yeah.
just in Egypt a little over a month ago. Yeah.
Well, what pulled you into Egyptology?
I mean, that's been, I've always been fascinated by it. And going back to, I mean, shoot, grew up on Indiana Jones, right?
Oh yeah, me too.
But really, what seriously sparked my interest in, other than Indiana Jones and the idea of being on the adventure and discovering things,
Yeah.
and I always loved history. In 1993, there was the Mysteries of the Sphinx documentary that came out that featured Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, and the redating of the Sphinx, hosted by Charlton
Yes.
Heston. It was just absolutely fascinating. And then it was the following year, the movie Stargate came out. So it was like those two things, like back to back, like that, just absolutely fascinated me. So that was always a part of me. That was an interest that I always had. But I was doing a lot more with the paranormal and supernatural along the way, and just over the years, I found so many different correlations between what I was discovering in the paranormal and supernatural world, and what they believed about the afterlife journey and the duat and all these other things in ancient Egypt. One of the parts of the soul is the shadow, the cave part of the soul, and so when I wrote A Walk in the Shadows, that's where I started really drawing those lines back from the paranormal supernatural research into ancient Egypt.
You know, it's so deep.
Hmm.
There's so many excuse the pun, but rabbit holes to go down. And but I mean, seriously, I and when I start researching this, I am, you know, and I am easily distracted. A little bit of ADHD still in there somewhere, but it's just like, oh, well, this is astounding. And then there was the summer that I got to hear Eric Von Daniken lecture 4 times in one summer, and I was just
Oh,
like, oh my gosh. And it was when I first started hitting the conferences and stuff and covering them. But it was, to me, fascinating to hear him share his experiences of being able to go into the the pyramids when there were no restrictions.
right. Yeah.
He was able to go down into the base of the pyramid where they had, I don't know if you've heard him talk
Echo
about this,
chamber.
and you may have seen the pool, that would
Mhm.
refill. And have you seen that? Is that
I've been to the
still?
subterranean chamber, and yeah, there are ideas that it was a pool that would be filled and things like. I mean, there's nothing in there now, but uh,
Yeah,
dirt
but it was
and
clear
but
water. It was clean water.
yeah,
It
that's
wasn't.
one of the ideas. Yeah. Yeah, when we do the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour, that's one of the features of the tour is that we get the Great Pyramid of Giza, just our group, 2 hours. Uh, the whole thing's opened up to us. So the public just gets during the day when it's open, the
Yeah,
public can just go inside, up the Grand Gallery, into the King's Chamber, and back down. But we get the whole thing opened up to us. So yeah, it's really amazing having an opportunity to be able to do that.
it
And
would be.
and yeah, and that's another thing where finding these connections back into all these interests that I have. That I have my whole connected universe. Everything's connected. So
Yes.
Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. We're doing all this research and exploring the ancient stargates. Well, they were harnessing portal technology to be able to either go to other places in the cosmos, other places on the planet, enter into altered states of consciousness, all these things. So, but we can take that back to what I was researching there for the Alaska Triangle and the portals up there. The book that I'm working on right now is getting deep into that. And I posted a blog article the other day about portals in the wilderness, which relates all this back to things like Sasquatch, or Sasquatch using portals out in the woods, people disappearing through portals out in the woods. Um, yeah, so it's all related.
You know, I I listened to some of the, well, everything is related. I truly think that I don't think that there's a lot of secrets about the the synchronicity, the interconnectivity, but I do think that people just try to blow that off. I don't know why. I mean, it's just fascinating. But I've heard people say, "Oh, well, that's nothing. That there's no correlation." And I'm like, "Whatevs. You should read more." you know.
Yeah, people try to blow
And
things off as coincidence, but when you can find so many different stories talking about the same thing, it's like, okay, it's no longer coincidence. No, this is
mm,
an actual phenomenon that is occurring. There's definitely some credence to all of this. So,
yeah, what I want to talk some about your connecting the universe
okay.
because you are talking about connectivity. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, the docu series and the show and the books and you know the fact that you're teaching an interactive class, and I have not had a chance to participate in that yet. Um, but trust me, you're going to be seeing more of me because now I know this is there and that I can access that. So, and I really can't imagine a better teacher for this kind of topic.
Thank you.
So there's that. But you are taking this through your classes, you're taking it through your podcast, you're talking about lost knowledge, supernatural entities. you're talking about various connectivities. I think everybody should take this class. I really do, because
I would appreciate that. Yeah.
it affects everybody, and it affects all realms of humanity. It's not just like some weird, wacky thing. This is a big deal. And how long have you been teaching the classes, and what made you decide that this was something you wanted to bring to this level of involvement? I mean, this is huge. This
Yeah.
is a big, hairy deal.
Yeah. The Connected Universe portal's been online for, I think, 3 years now, something like
Yeah.
that. And that grew out of, well, a couple different things. For one, okay, it started with the Edge of the Rabbit Hole, which is still going. And at some point, people are asking for a second hour of it. Well, I just like to have the guests on for an hour rather than two. And my co-hosts at the time couldn't do 2 hours anyway. But the viewers wanted a second hour. So what I decided to do was, okay, I'll do a second hour. At that point, I called it Inside the Upside Down, kind of playing off of Stranger Things. And I just decided I'm going to take a topic and just run with it for an hour, and we'll talk and we'll discuss, and we'll have a conversation about whatever the topic might be. Might be paranormal, supernatural, might be UFOs, just whatever it was. And so yeah, I did that for a long time. I called it Beyond the Shadows for a while, and finally settled on Connecting the Universe when I started doing more to bring the Connected Universe portal to life. And that really kind of stemmed out of the Patreon page that I had. I was doing more with that than Patreon could handle.
Yes.
I had so much material that I was putting back there, and it was like, this isn't the right platform for this. So I found an online learning platform with Kajabi, and I built the portal on the Kajabi platform. And so, yeah, there's some standalone courses out there. There's one on ancient Egypt. There's one on time travel, and there's another one on shadow entities. But I have the monthly membership, which or people get an annual one, which has the weekly interactive classes. There's monthly Q&A videos. We do some lives together. There's I do my Mike's Morning Mug videos out there, some behind the scenes stuff, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I put up there. So yeah, I encourage anybody to check it out.
Well, I tell you, I don't think anyone could go wrong with doing that, and we will revisit that before we go.
Okay.
But what is your pet topic? You cover so much.
Oh my God.
What is something that
I mean, right now it's all the time travel. That's always been something I've really enjoyed talking about. Because I enjoy talking about the Stargates, simulated universe. I enjoy that as well because I have a degree in simulated.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I just really like talking about it all.
Can you share some about Stargates? Because I know that other than the television show, okay, but there's a lot of people that really don't have quite a grasp. I mean, nobody has a definitive answer, but can you give some description and share some experiences with our listeners about what these are?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the television show or the original movie, even though that did kind of inspire me. But when you go to places like ancient Egypt, you find them right there in plain sight. And there's several in South America, like Amaru Muru, right there in Lake Titicaca. There's the Gate of the Sun. These other locations like that around the globe. Sri Lanka has a couple of Stargates. Egypt is loaded with them, and you find the symbolism there all over the place, where literally it is spelled out Stargate. The word is right.
So they're like labeled?
Yeah, they're labeled. They're right there.
Get out of town.
I'm not kidding. So yeah, if you watch any of my Stargates videos, that's what you'll see. And the guide that I team up with over there, Mohammed Ibrahim, his tour company is called Saba Tours, which is the name for the Egyptian word for Stargate, and his logo is, it's those hieroglyphs. So, but yeah, you find them all over the place in so many different temples, and it's fascinating to see. This is right in plain sight, and Hatshepsut's temple is one that to me is just like a perfect setup for Stargate. You have these amazing stairs that go all the way into the back of the cliff. The temple is basically built into the cliff, and you have this symbolism of I'll say snake energy, but for listeners, the snake was the ancient symbol for energy, and so you have these snake tails. The actual statues themselves are recarved from snakes into falcons, but you still have the tails going up the staircase. You have a pyramid, the base of a ruined pyramid that's off to the side there. And there's a lot of wonderful theories about how the pyramids were used to harness the Earth's energy. And actually, there is some scientific evidence to back that up. So you have that pyramid there to charge the whole thing. And as you go back through the different gates, just large, tall gates into the different courtyards and things, labeled right on the doorways are Stargate, Stargate, Stargate. And then you get into it's called the Bark Hall, but really that just means this is the transformation of the gods as you're walking through this hall. In the very back is the Holy of Holies, which there's 2 guards sitting right there. They won't let you in there. You can tip them and they'll take a picture inside, but they won't take a picture of what you really want to see, which is on the one wall is just this cartouche full of stars, which is like the ultimate symbol for Stargate. So it's just a perfect setup for a Stargate, the whole thing.
Well, we are going to have to go to break. I can't believe we're at this point and we have to go to break. I'm having the best time. Thank you very much. So, for everyone listening, we are going to be back, and I have Mike Ricksecker as my guest, and he'll be coming back too. Y'all do also. And thank you for being here very much. We'll see you on the flip side.
Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number one on Paranormal Talk Radio.
Hello there. Welcome back for our second hour of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I have to tell you that our new edition is out. If you don't have it yet, you need to check it out. You can look online at fatemag.com, and it's really, I love our covers. This one is angels, and I think it's beautiful. We also have an article in there that I shared about my investigation at Winchester House when I was with Spirit Realm Network and with Rick McCollum and my co-investigator, Lori Dorsey. We had just a great investigation there, and I shared some of that. So the new Fate Mag is out, and please go check it out. It's so much fun, and there's things available on the website that you might like to have too. So tonight, my guest is Mike Ricksecker, and he is one of the most proficient authors I know. He has written so many books. He has written Travels Through Time, A Walk in the Shadows, Alaska's Mysterious Case Triangle, which we were just talking about. He has the Ghostorian Case Files. He has, what's that? Encounters with the Paranormal. And he is just full of some of the best information. I think that he is a lot of fun and very interesting. And I'm so glad he's here. Mike Ricksecker, welcome back.
Hello again, Kat.
And I'm sorry that I had to.
No, I was just wondering, is she really gonna list them all?
Hey, we've got all night. I can just go down the list. I would be here all night. I would be here all night. So, but people need to know, you're really a great author because your books are so easy to read, and some of the topics are complex, and yet it's not difficult to grasp with how you explain them. And I appreciate that. I like it when people do that.
Especially with a book like Travels Through Time. I mean, there's some deep scientific concepts in there, but I knew I didn't want to talk over my audience. I wanted to be able to explain things in a way that they could understand while still talking about some of these deep scientific topics. So I called a book that's It has a lot of science, but it's not too sciencey. There's a lot of metaphysics in it without being too metaphysical. But at its heart, it's a philosophy book. And what I do to try to explain a lot of these different concepts is I incorporate a lot of popular culture, a lot of science fiction films, things like that. Just stuff that people can relate to and understand. And be like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I did. I got that. Okay. I understand this. But
Yeah.
it's a big deal to be able to reach your audience like that. I mean, to be able to grasp, and I know there's a lot of stuff out there that is so full of wonderful information, but it puts the reader off because it is so tech.
Yeah.
And and people feel like, oh, this is above me. This is so above my head. And one person, and I am going to compare here, one
Oh,
person whose books I really enjoy, really didn't have a lot of trouble with, was Stanton Friedman.
okay.
Um, he and Kathleen writing together were a brilliant combination. He really is who taught me the most about the physics of ufology.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying I have a grasp of all of that because that's not my field of study. I'm a paralegal, but totally different ballgame.
Mhm.
But I have a fascination, and he recognized that fascination. So when we spoke, he was like, "Well, this is all this is." And I'm like, "Oh, that's all this is. Okay. Well, if that's all this is, I can understand that. It doesn't sound nearly as intimidating."
Right.
And you do a good job of that too.
Thank you.
It's really it's really just you take, like you said, you bring it to where people are comfy.
Mhm.
And if you can reach a comfort zone, you can learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's where my actually experience working in the IT industry for over 30 years came into play. Because when I got out of the Air Force, I worked for, at the beginning, a library staffing firm. And so they would staff all these libraries with personnel, and I was, the manager of their IT department. But we had like a contract with the Department of Energy and some of these other contracts, and so I'd have to go on location sometimes. And I'm trying to talk to librarians about technology, and these days, libraries have a lot of technology embedded within them. So I've gotten much better at this over the years. But 25 years ago, the
Not so
technology,
much.
not so much, and the technology intimidated a lot of people. So I had to kind of explain things and bring things down to more layman terms regarding technology and what we were going to do for solutions for their library. So that actually gave me a lot of practice in what I'm doing now. Just think of it from the point of view of the reader and somebody who's just going to pick up this book. Will they understand what it is that I'm talking about? And I want them to be able to understand what I'm talking about. I've only had one person that I can think of, and I don't even know who it is. It was a random comment on, I think it was Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, one of the Amazon reviews, and they said that the tone of the book was too conversational. And I was like, oh, maybe it's too conversational for you, but that's the way I want it. I want it to be conversational. I want it to be like, hey, we're sitting down, we're having a coffee or a beer together, and we're talking about these different ideas and concepts.
Well, and that's how that's how your books read. The shadow dimensions, I mean, which is a whole different world, but the time travel really, because I recently watched Somewhere in Time.
Ah,
Okay.
very good.
So somebody had told me if I would read that book or watch that movie, that I would grasp your book.
Okay, good.
And because I was really excited. We had talked before all the hodgepodge and having to reschedule stuff, and I
Mhm.
was very excited, and I wanted to have a clear grasp what we were going to be discussing. And I was told, if you'll watch this, you'll know that. And I was like, and then as I'm reading the book, after, well, I read most of the book before I watched the movie, but then when I watched the movie, I was like, lights on, aha moment. And, it was such a beautiful thing because you can just imagine having found your way there, trying to find your way back, and then having someone that had mattered so much come back and tell you how to do that.
Yeah.
As my great big hand comes at the camera, but it's just, that's the giving it back moment. But
Yeah.
it's really, you write to share with people,
Mhm.
and I can't imagine somebody putting that on there thinking they were being derogatory.
It is
That was
what it
not a
is. You're gonna have
derogatory
people like
statement.
that. Yeah, you're gonna have people like
So,
that. But yeah, Somewhere in Time was a massive influence for me. Um, it's been with me since I was a kid. Just the concept and the idea that he was, able to will his consciousness. Again, it's a fictional story. I get it, but the concept of willing his consciousness from 1980 back to 1912.
yes.
And we do that, unknowingly sometimes. We talked about
Mhm.
time slips earlier. I mean, that's one method. There are times where we're asleep, our our mind enters into different wave states, and we get glimpses of the future. Our
Mhm.
consciousness becomes free floating sometimes, and it can move into other moments in time and bring that information back. And then all of a sudden, okay, we wake up and maybe it's a day, a week, a month later, and all of a sudden, exactly what we dreamt.
You're there.
Yes, you're actually, there is a type of time travel. So the idea that you could consciously do this, and I believe it would be, uh, we could really harness the power of meditation, set that intention going in, and align our frequency with that other point in time. It would take a lot of work, it would take a lot of practice, and it would also take knowing what the other frequency is to be able to connect with it. But I
Yes.
believe it's entirely possible. And so,
Well,
yeah, sometime in the future, I think we'll be able to master that, but it's going to take some time.
I think that it's not unrealistic to think that there may be people who can do that now. Because
Probably,
when
yeah.
you were, how old were you? 8?
Well, I
When
was
you,
8. I was 8 when I
was
had
it 8?
that shadow person incident. When I had the almost out of body experience trying to time travel, I was 14.
Yes.
Yeah,
And but you were doing it. I mean, you felt like
it was
you
right on
were
the cusp of
accomplishing
something.
that
Yeah,
if you hadn't, fear factor hadn't kicked.
yeah. I
And
guess. Oops, I had no idea what was going
well,
on.
who
I
would
was just
not be spooked, and especially a
right.
kid? I mean, that's not an unrealistic reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
No,
going to put that out there. But
for your listeners and viewers, basically what happened to me was I had gotten into I tried to do what he did in the movie, was like lie down on the bed and just he convinced himself that he was in that year of 1912. He did it like through subliminal messages and convincing himself that he was back there in that time. So that's what I was trying to do. And I had put myself into such a meditative state that, I felt like these undulating currents, like I was riding some waves, like gentle, they weren't crashing waves. It was kind of like very gentle, kind of like an ebb and flow to it. It was like, okay, that's interesting. But then I started feeling this like electric static feel. It was getting all tingly and everything. It was like, okay, something's going on here, and it
done.
spooked me, and I got out of it. But yeah, years later, so I was telling that story to others. So I was just kind of getting into the field and everything. That's where I came to learn that, yeah, I was on the verge of having an out of body experience. I was going to project. And the question becomes, okay, was I just going to project into my room, or was I really going to go back in time?
You feel like you were.
I was going somewhere. I was going.
Definitely going somewhere.
Yeah.
But, I have found, and it's without quite so concerted an effort as you were putting out there.
Mhm.
But if I am in a meditative state, it feels like, yeah, when I was 15 and 16,
Mhm.
I took a transcendental meditation class.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was, to me, very much transcendental. It's just like I would just be off somewhere.
Mhm.
And the instructor, I mean, because I wasn't old enough to stay at home by myself, all by myself for days on end when my dad was working. So this class was someplace that I could go while he was at work. I did other things too. I volunteered and stuff, but part of my week was doing this class. And the instructor was very encouraging to let your mind take you on a journey. And I was not really comfortable with that. When I was young, I had a lot of things that I couldn't control in my environment. And so it was very important to me to maintain control.
Yeah.
And doing this meditation was like, eek, because I am not sitting in the same room, right?
Mhm.
So I found it interesting that even though I was a reluctant traveler, I was still traveling. And I genuinely was, because I would, as you have mentioned, see things that other people were doing, because
Yeah.
I would just like go to my grandparents or go to whatever, you know. And I really hadn't thought about that for so long until I was reading your books.
Oh.
And then I think that a lot of people, like yogis, are great at this.
Oh, sure.
They
Yeah.
really are. I mean, so many people, the Tibetan chants
Mhm.
take you there. There's so many cultures that really do believe that this is a healthy, mentally healthy thing to be
Right.
able to do. And do you think that it's more escapism, or do you think that it's trying to go into a situation to rectify or find peace within? What do you feel like
Yeah, I
is
think it's you're trying to center yourself, you're trying to ground yourself, you're trying to get your mind right. So um, I've been meditating now for a little while. Jennifer got me into it, and something I did like every once in a while. But Jennifer got me into a regular routine of it, and it's a great way to start the day and just get the mind right. And you know what? I go into those meditation setting in intention, and there have been so many times where that those intentions have come to fruition. So it's you're connecting with the universe at that point.
yes.
So if you're setting that intention, and then channeling energy of the universe through you and putting that out there, and good things happen. Plus you have a nice refreshed body on top of it.
Yes, you do. A nice refreshed body, a nice refreshed mind, and a little
Yeah,
insight. Yeah.
exactly.
I just
And a
I
lot of
just
times,
love.
what happens. Yeah, I was just about to say, sorry. A lot of times what will happen is like while I'm meditating, usually you're trying to clear your mind, clear your thoughts, but other thoughts will suddenly filter in, and it'll be like, oh, this is something I need to do, this is something I need to take care of that either I would have forgotten, or it's like a good idea for like a book or a project that I'm working on. Like, oh, it's kind of like, the universe is whispering to me, hey, do this. And,
Yes.
oh, it's great. Thank
It's
you.
a gift.
Yeah.
It is. It's a gift. Thank you is the appropriate response when the universe just, here you go.
Mhm.
You know, I'm glad that you feel like that, because so many people, I know a lot of people who like ho hum when you talk about meditation, and it is such a good brain tool.
Yeah.
There's so much coming at us every day in the the media rich environment that we live in, the angst that is so pungent in the environment sometimes. And, just to take those few minutes for yourself
Yeah.
is so important. And I'm really not really promoting anything in particular, except
Right.
just sit down and breathe, right? I mean, with intent. The fact you doing it with intent is so cool.
Yeah, you had guys like Einstein and Tesla, and they did what they called thought experiments. So they would basically sit down and close their eyes, and through their mind would think out their different theories and their different projects and all that. And really, it was a type of meditation. They were connecting with the universe as they were going through these thought experiments and coming out with fantastic, wonderful ideas that progressed our technology, decades ahead of where it had been. So, yeah, it's not just for mystical woo-woo people.
Yep.
These were scientists that did that.
Well, I got to tell you, if it worked for Einstein and Alan, I'll take that. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's Jimmy Buffett wrote a song called "Einstein Was a Surfer," and it's such a good song because it's like the smartest cookie that ever was, and is one of the lines from it. But that is such, that universal connectivity
Mhm.
is so important. And the fact that if we, the Bible says, be still and know. And I really think that, well, every philosophy has that mindset.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things that it's open to us. It is open to us. We don't have to strive, with great difficulty to achieve that.
Right.
But I'm doing way too much talking when I've got a guest of your caliber here.
Oh, you're good. You're fine.
Well, no, I mean, I want to learn more about you. So, and when for people that don't know, when you're doing your connecting the universe,
Mhm.
what specifically are you connecting? What is when you created this,
Mhm.
what were you seeking?
Eternal knowledge. So all the knowledge of the universe is out there at our disposal. So when you get into travels through time, in my stack time theory and all that, you look at the different dimensions, you come to learn that, okay, all time is here, past, present, future. It's all concurrent. Our consciousness is in the fourth dimension that we call time. Time doesn't really exist. And those that are in the fifth, sixth, seventh dimension onward can see time, as a whole object. It's all accessible. That means all the knowledge of the universe is here. That's what guys like Einstein and Tesla were tapping into. They were tapping into that eternal knowledge that is out there. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. You have my good friend Emily Harrison has the Akashic Academy, which teaches how to tap into the Akashic records. It's the same concept. All that knowledge is here. And so that's kind of the idea, is we're talking about all of these different topics. And, as we discuss and we get deeper into a lot of these different topics, there's kind of almost like, it's like eureka moments will happen, where somebody will throw a question down into the chat. And as I'm like, trying to answer, it's like, oh, wait a minute. You pose a good question or a good point or whatever, and then all of a sudden, all this other information will start filtering in. I don't know how many times it's happened where I have a lesson plan set up. We're going to talk about this, and as people start putting their ideas out there and asking their questions, it just becomes like this, this thought soup of all different ideas and concepts, and things just start to click.
Well, it's very effective.
Thank you.
And I think it's very effective that your class pulls you through there too. I think that's
Oh
neat.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just me trying to, I don't know, show off. Hey, I know this. It's no. I mean, I'm still learning too. I don't know it
Well,
all.
we
I definitely
we
don't.
never stop.
Right.
You know, it's really interesting when we find a question that somebody brings us and it's like, I'm going to have to research beyond this because now your curiosity is piqued and you're going to be ready the next time a question evolves from that. I think that's fun. I love teaching. I don't get to do it very often, but I think that it is so much fun.
Yeah.
I actually was a substitute teacher that would have lesson plans that, like, one of the science teachers was my favorite to sub for. But because I would be teaching these kids stuff that I had forgotten. It had
Sure.
been so long since I was in
Right.
school.
Been a few years.
So,
Right.
yeah, and especially middle schoolers who, if you don't have their attention, they're a lot worse to teach. Not really worse than some grown-ups, but they don't know everything yet,
Right.
and some grown-ups
Yes,
are
they do.
convinced that they do, right?
Right.
But what what is we were talking about the Akashic, about the knowledge base,
Yeah.
reaching out to the knowledge base. And I have had people who have said there's methodologies to go through to find them, to get into them. I have had one of the most powerful gifted psychics that I know who says, "You just look." You just go
Yeah.
find it. And I'm like, I'm not very good at just doing that because, I'm intimidated. I have all these people who over the years have wanted, you know, for this amount of money, you too can access your Akashic records and, this, that, and the other. And they weren't people that I was absolutely convinced could help you do that. And how difficult do you think it is once you've made the initial foray in for someone to be able to revisit, to learn, and to download?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just in my morning meditations, things will come in. It's no more difficult than that. Like I said, Emily Harrison, who runs the Akashic Academy, and she's a business coach of mine too. So whenever we have our business calls, we always enter the Akashic. And there's some different methods. I mean, she probably has about 6 different methods. You can try this method, this method, this method, this method to enter the Akash. But yeah, really, it's no more difficult than just sitting down and meditating for a little bit and just listening.
Yeah.
Things will start to filter in. So there's not like a big secret to do it. I think it's
So
kind of
just
setting that intention, really. Yeah.
intention is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so too. Well, and I'm not slamming people that give classes on doing this, but I do think that there's some people that just cannot do that. And I hope that they're listening to you tonight so that they will know, you know, open yourself up to it, which is what you're doing through your meditative state. So, do
Yeah, I mean,
you,
I think some people need to be guided because I think people get so keyed up on, I really want to, and they kind of push themselves a little too hard, and that trying to push too hard kind of blocks them. So
yeah.
sometimes I think, we have, okay, try this method, try this method, try this method, kind of relax them a little bit. So, I'm going to try that. Okay.
Well, I was just as freaked out by being told, just do it. As I was by, well, there's this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, no, this cannot be, I guess when I started, I was looking for a primer
Hmm. Right.
to, the step by step method.
Yeah.
And there's not one. I think it's very individual. So
Yeah, because we're each individual people. So something that might work for me might not work for another person. What works for them might not work for me. Yeah, you have to kind of try things out and find your method. Yeah.
well, can we talk about some of the stuff that you're doing for Gaia and
Sure.
stuff? Are you still working with them?
Yeah, I'm going to be flying out there on Thursday. So yeah.
Well, what is your are you excited?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll be talking. I'll be filming with George Norrie again for Beyond Belief. Yeah.
He's a pretty cool guy.
He is. Yeah, he's great.
I would love to have Tommy's Rolodex.
Gosh, yeah.
Right. But I love those guys. They are some of the nicest men.
Yeah.
And what is your first show going to be about?
I'm sorry.
What is your first show coming up going to be about?
I mean, I've already had. I've done several of their shows over there. A few episodes of Beyond Belief, and I've been on Open Minds with Regina Meredith on there. So this one we're going to be talking about. We talk about time travel because that's the latest book.
It seems to be a theme.
Yeah, a little bit of a thing. Well, that's what we're featuring right now. I mean, the last one though, which got a lot of really good response, was on Stargates in Egypt's Area 51.
It's such a fascinating topic.
Mhm.
And, you know, it blows my mind earlier when you were like, it's just there. You know, it says Stargate. And I guess that I had never thought that it would be something that open. That
It's right there in plain
just
sight. Yeah.
here you go. Yeah. Do are there any here in the US?
So yeah, what we find here in the American Southwest, and they're labeled as portals, but we see them like Chaco Canyon, around the Skinwalker Ranch area. Yeah, they're there.
Okay.
Because like at Chaco Canyon, they have the portals that they talk about the star people use to come down here to Earth. So it's essentially a Stargate. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually been fascinated by that. In fact, the show tonight is coming from beautiful Las Vegas because I'm out here and I got to go out to Area 51 and do some touristy things
Yeah.
and you know, I had a great guide who was like, "Yeah, let me turn you on to this kind of stuff."
Hmm.
But I didn't see anything out there that would lead me to think that I didn't feel anything either that led me to think that this is a portal area. And then when we went to a different location, I was like, oh, this energy is so weird.
Yeah.
But it wasn't at Area 51. So I don't know what's up with that. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they really chose Area 51 because of the energy there as they did. It was secluded and they had access to a lake.
I
Um,
think that's the one.
yeah.
Yeah. But I was surprised that that is such a, a water-based area. There's a lot of the water table there is very healthy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I was so surprised. But you know, we did go out into another area that was definitely energetic.
Hmm.
And I didn't see anything to indicate I didn't see a portal. I didn't really feel that there was one, but the energy of this area was just insane. And when I've been in Sedona, it was a similar energy.
Okay.
When I was in like Cathedral of the Cross, that that place, even my husband, who will tell you that he is as sensitive as a brick, looked at me and said, "There is something about this place. You need to go light candles for the kids. We are
Yeah.
not Catholic." And yet he wanted me to go light candles. And I was like,
I'll figure that
I
out.
will do that. But so we did.
Good.
But you know, what I felt in Sedona was very similar to what I felt yesterday.
Okay.
And I thought, this isn't billed at all as being an energetic site. I wonder what's going on here. So
Yeah, but
I
even if
know,
it's not billed as an energetic site, you have all kinds of places around the globe that are loaded with energy, and they might be off the beaten path somewhere. Yeah. So, but
I,
Sedona is highly billed as that, but you seriously feel it there. I've been a couple times now, and yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, energy hotspot.
yeah, it's kind of off the chain.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. What is with your Egypt tours? I know
Mhm.
I'm hopping around, but I have a lot of questions for
Sure.
you. But what in your Egyptian tours, what is one thing that has really blown your mind aside from the Stargates being so prevalent? Is there something that has stood out to you?
Oh my gosh. So, we've made some interesting discoveries there, yes, along the Stargate line, but just the construction methods, and there's so much like hidden within the construction. For one, you're walking into these places, they're huge and they're massive, and you're just like, how? How did they
Yeah.
do this? Um, but there was at Abydos, there's a room called the Room of Ships, and this was part of the after show for Connecting the Universe last week. So this was um, kind of like the extra stuff that we talked about. But you go into the Room of Ships, and it was Seti's favorite room. Seti was long 100 years ago. When she was a little girl, she had she had actually died, was resuscitated, and then when she went to the British Museum with her parents, all of a sudden, she's seeing the Egyptian stuff, and she could tell you exactly what it was and who it was connected to and all that. So she had a past life in Egypt, and she was kind of channeling that now. She was connected to King Seti. And so Abydos it's the temple of Seti. He built that particular temple. And so she went there to help them reconstruct the whole thing. And this particular room was her favorite room there. And she would sleep there and all kinds of things. So when we were in there this past time, the curator of the place, good friends with our tour guide, Mohammed, and they're having a little conversation. Like, Mohammed, do you ever notice the ceiling in here? We're looking up. And this is a room that the public doesn't get to. It's because Mohammed's good friends with Mahmoud, and we're able to get in there. Looking up at the ceiling, and there's basically like this path that is like a ramp that leads out. It just kind of slopes up, and kind of looking at that, it's like, that's really interesting. And so this is when we look at the symbolism of ships there in ancient Egypt, a lot of times they have them on the stars. So it's like, okay, these are like the spaceships. And so we're looking at this like, yeah, that would be like up and out. So we're kind of, lingering about a little bit. We're looking up at the, at the top of the columns. Usually the header there, it usually sticks out. I mean, the base that sticks out, and usually the header sticks out as well. But we see that no, it's actually cut off right there, like straight even with the column. Okay, that's a little different. And then we're actually looking at the column. It's like, no, from that header that is cut off down the entire side of the column. It's not, the column isn't perfectly cylindrical. It is flat on that side, and all of them the whole way. So, oh, that's really interesting. So go to the back of the room. So, because I'm going to get a photo of all of this. Here are these, columns that are like this. You got the slope that's going up and out. What in the world's going on here? So I'm standing back, and I notice, wait a second. These flattened edges, they aren't even straight down. They're at a slight V. So it's like, oh my gosh, this actually looks like a dry dock for a ship. It's like, what in the world? It was amazing. So
Well,
That's something I'm looking to dive a bit more into with the research there. So yeah, it's just so many things hidden within the construction. Yeah.
I have um, I have several friends who are very active Egyptologists, and I'm really lucky about that because it's a topic I love too. I just
Hmm.
don't know very much about it yet, but I'm learning. And the things with the construction, I've never heard anybody talk about that. But if you stop and think about, how Hollywood sometimes represents a little bit more truth than we realize, in Independence Day, the bunker that they were in, that they had the alien craft that they were going to fly out to take the nuclear weapon up.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with that
Yeah,
movie?
I've seen that movie several times. Yeah.
But that's how the bunker where that where they flew out of, that's how that was constructed
Right. Yeah.
with the same dynamic,
Yeah. It was
the
kind of up
same.
and out. Yeah. Yeah. It
So
really was kind of that same thing. Yeah.
so that's pretty interesting. The movie that had a craft was constructed the same as a place that might have been built by people with crafts.
Yeah.
So
There's so much there that again, hidden in plain sight, and we can see evidence that they had an advanced technology that traditional archaeology just isn't giving them credit for. Like they're trying to say, well, all this stuff was built with stone and copper tools, but there's so much fine craftsmanship. For one, copper can't cut granite. And granite, they made so many intricate sculptures out of the granite. They're not supposed to have had saws and things like this, but you look in, go to the Egyptian Museum at Cairo, and there's an area where they have a bunch of sarcophagi, and there's this one that's kind of hidden in the back, off to the side, and it's laying on its side. On the back side of it, though, you can see that they were cutting the lid off of the underside of the sarcophagus. Now, again, they weren't supposed to have saws. They're using stone and copper tools, but you're looking down this thing, and they had stopped construction because it broke off. But you can see, there's these slits that are within it. You look down to stick a flashlight, you look down the slits, and you can see plain as day that it was two circular saws, one on top of the other, that were cutting through this thing. Granite, okay? Granite's a pretty hard stone. And so, I just, but my dad is a machinist. He knows nothing about ancient Egypt and all that. He's retired now. So take these photos to him. I'm like, Dad, what would cut this? And he's like, it's granite, right? Yeah. And he's like, diamond tip saw.
yeah, my
Which they were
husband's a
not
machinist
supposed to,
also,
yeah, which they were
and
not supposed to have had, but they obviously did. It's
yeah,
right there. Yeah.
we've had that not because I had pictures or a knowledge, but we have talked about how could this have happened?
Yeah.
Because he owns a CNC lathe and the mills and
Mhm.
the everything, and it's hard. I mean, literally, he does a process that hardens steel
Mhm.
and does coatings and things of that nature, and they're as hard as granite or harder. And I'm like, how could they have done these things without these tools?
Right.
He was like, I don't think they could. you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah, they had the tools, and people ask, well, then where are the tools? And it's like, well, you're talking thousands and thousands of years, right?
yes,
And um, metal, talking, that they had metal tools, it does degrade, rust, and disappear. I mean, the stone is not going to, but the tools, yeah, they will.
mhm,
That, and we also have discovered some things they're in the hands of private collectors.
yes,
So there's that too.
and that's one of the things with how Egypt was being kind of looted. Not
Oh,
kind of,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
and you sit there and you look at some of the collections around the world, and it's like, you should give that back. What are you doing? You should give.
Yeah.
They're not going to. I
They're not,
mean,
no, there's some things that have made their way back a little bit, or like, when the French took the uh, zodiac off the ceiling of the Temple of Dendara, they put a replica in its place that's up there. So I've done some things like that, but it's it's a hard subject to talk about because you look back now and you're like, well, these things should be back in the hands of the Egyptians. But when you had the British and the French and the other nations that were in there, Italians and others, at the time that they found an interest in ancient Egypt, Egypt itself didn't care.
yeah,
To them, I mean, they had, the temples that were still standing, they had repurposed to basically squatters. Squatters were living in there, burning their little fires and all. That's why the ceilings were so blackened, and they've had to do so much to try to restore those, is because, it was a squatter's paradise out there, and they didn't care one iota of preserving their legacy, because those that were there in the country, it wasn't their legacy. You had,
yes,
from the ancient Egyptians, you had the Greeks took over, and then the Romans took over after that, and then the Arab nations took over after that. So it wasn't their legacy. They didn't care. But like Napoleon is one that really opened people's eyes to it. He decided that when he was going to go down and invade Egypt, he brought scientists and artists and all these people to Egypt with him to make drawings of what they found and to investigate and all that. And so when he brought all that back to France, all of Europe suddenly became extremely interested in Egypt. And so then it just became a battle between all these other nations for the Egyptian antiquities. So they did, in a sense, save all of that. But once Egypt finally kind of woke up and was like, oh yeah, we should have an interest in our own stuff too, and they're like, yeah, we can make a few bucks off of it, with tourism and all that.
hindsight, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then they took an interest, and now when we look back at it, it's like, yeah, now that Egypt cares, it should go back to them. But yeah, because they were taking obelisks and things like this. It's like, oh my gosh, there's like whole temples in New York City that he brought over. Come on.
Yes. Well,
That's not
Victoria,
Victoria's question there.
yeah,
Not a laser, because you would see vitrification of the stone if it was done by laser.
mhm.
And you don't see that evidence. It's a very, very fine machine cut. We just don't know what the machine was, but it wasn't laser.
Yes, and really, when you get to the hard metals, the hard stones, they do require grinding of
Yeah.
some type, and that's something that I'm always so amazed at. That technology is so cool. But my husband does a process that makes the finished product harder than the original metal started,
Yeah.
and I think that's cool as all get out.
Yeah, I
But
mean, we have tools today for doing the carvings into stone, like granite and what have you. Very, very fine machine bits, different like drills and chisels and all kinds of stuff that are built into the machine that is run by a computer, and perfectly symmetrical, perfectly beautiful, all that. And you see that in in these sculptures by the ancient Egyptians, knowing they weren't supposed to have that technology. So you're like, how? So they had some sort of technology. It's not going to be like ours today, but it was an ancient high technology that we don't quite understand what it was.
Well, one of the things that I find interesting about that is that one of my um, past guest, who has been on with me a couple of times, is convinced that the pyramid was actually like a water pump. And I'm just kind of like,
Yeah,
I don't know what I think about that.
not a water pump. Uh, Christopher Dunn's idea about it being a power plant.
Mhm.
I'm more on board with that. I mean, we do have scientific evidence today to show that yes, the pyramid is harnessing energy.
Mhm.
It was a machine to some degree, some sort of machine. In the smoking gun of the whole thing is in the Queen's chamber, because you go in there, and that's off limits to the public. But again, our tour group is able to get in there, and there's a niche on the left wall when you walk in there. It has a little bit of a corbelled structure to it. Within the bottom third of it, there's a passageway that goes about 30 meters into the wall and kind of dead ends. But what's interesting about this is that the entire back side of it is burned, it's charred. Something extremely hot was there to the point that it melted the stone. So, traditional archaeology tries to say, well, there was an idol or a statue that was standing in there. It's like, yeah, no, no, because a statue would not have done that.
No.
Yeah. So it was
What
definitely
was,
a machine, and there's like a layer of salt within that room. So that's where Christopher Jones, like, he calls it a chemical reaction chamber, which maybe, but maybe there was, that machine, whatever was in that niche, helping to create that chemical reaction. Then one of the shafts that's in there, one of the small shafts, at the end of it, it's where you have these two, they're like copper brackets. We have no idea what they were used for, but that would have been part of it as well. It had wires or filaments coming down from there to connect something else beyond. We have no idea.
that's fascinating. So that was in a generally off limits area?
Well, it's off limits to the public.
Yeah.
Today, like when they do the daily tours.
Yeah.
But our tour group, they unlocked that for them. We are able to get in there. Yeah.
That is
Well,
one of the most fascinating things.
yeah.
What were you leaning toward? The chemical reaction
And like I
itself?
said, some sort of machine. I mean, yes, the pyramid does harness energy from the earth. Even our modern scientists have acknowledged that one. A few years ago, there was a report that came out that acknowledged that yes, it is harnessing energy from the earth. So as far as if it was a power plant, like, I don't think it was a power plant like we use it today to light up the lights and all
Right.
that sort of thing. I think it would have been more for two things. One, raising the consciousness and creating a higher vibration for the people of the land. And two, also for the crops. The most important thing for ancient Egyptians was the ability to grow food, because they had a very limited time in which they could do it, which was during the inundation season, which is when the Nile River flooded. And they had to grow quick and grow a lot of it, because when that season was over, then they're having to survive. Egypt is built on 7% of its land; the rest is desert. So it was a very important time for them. And so, I think one of the things it could have been providing energy for was to help produce a healthier crop, bigger crops, more abundant crops, those sorts of things.
Well, because as you said, that was their priority.
Yeah.
Do you have a feel for, I don't really know how to phrase this. I know that there are very many theories. Do you feel that this was a place that was a working community? I know there were kings, there were pharaohs, there
Mhm.
were other things of that nature. While you were there, did you feel that the theory of the Anunnaki with the glyphs and stuff like that when did you take away a sensation of what you believe from that?
I mean, there's a connection there, of course, because yeah, you look at the ancient Sumer text. There's that, which is where we get the Anunnaki stories from. There's a connection there between Enki and Thoth, which is the Egyptian god of knowledge. So they have a lot of similarities between them, and we get the same thing over here in the Americas with Quetzalcoatl. We're looking at beings that had the exact same quality. So it makes you wonder, okay, are we actually talking about the same being? And just given the culture, they gave that being a different name. So very possible. But yeah, we see many similarities between the Anunnaki stories and stories that we find in Egypt.
Because that just fascinates me. You know, Phil Ascaldi, the owner of Fate, was able to interview Sitchin.
Oh, great.
And that interview is on YouTube. You should check that
I'll
out.
check it out.
It is one of my favorite
I've
interviews
read
I've
Ninth
ever
Planet,
seen.
or 12th Planet, yeah. I've read 12th Planet and some of his others, yeah.
Well, what all do you have coming out, doing in the near future?
Yeah, well, we've talked a little bit before about that interview with Gaia, so that'll actually air probably late November, early December of this year.
Okay.
A couple of events I have coming up: Michigan Paracon, Hauntlanta. Those are my next couple there. I have a Germany tour, which is great. So that'll be next April, but the signups are available. So it's Mysteries of the Black Forest. It's a
Oh my
10-day
gosh.
10-day tour. That'll be amazing. So you can find the links through my website. Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of working on the next book, writing my blog articles, and of course got the everything that goes on with the YouTube channel and the Connected Universe portal. So I got a lot of things.
Oh, nothing major going on there. Good heavens.
Yeah, if people are interested in all the Egypt stuff, I have the video blogs up there on the portal. So yeah, that's where you get the stuff.
Well, I tell you what, I sure do appreciate your time. I have nothing but respect. I think you're one of the greatest guys in this field,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for being here. We are just thrilled that you were. We are going to be back here. I'm going to be going out of the country for a couple of weeks, but we are going to be having all kinds of fun. And it will be a joy. We'll make sure you won't be bored, though, because Race is going to be on top of that. So thank you so much. I will see you next time. And I will talk to you soon, Mike Ricksecker.
Talk to you again soon, Kat.
So, good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.